All right, so tuning into the channel here, we've got my dad, Bruce, and we've got Matt. And both these two gentlemen fought in the Iraq War at different times from different perspectives. We had one as a command sergeant major and one as a grunt, as a specialist. You know, they both have extensive careers. Obviously, one a little slightly more longer than the other, but they both, either way, served in a combat environment. And so this is an interview of two generations of Americans in the same conflict. It's pretty dark out here, so I'm pretty much just going to focus on the campfire here, and we're just going to listen to their perspectives, and we'll let age before beauty go, and that'll bring my dad about.
So he gets to go first?
No, you get to go first.
So unique and special, you guys, you know, there's the red light that you get to look at, which is actually pretty cool. There's a whole bunch of people out there that never get to experience this. They live in, you know, cities, and, you know, their backyard is concrete, and, you know, so they have like kind of no idea what this might be like. We're just sitting in somebody's backyard, my son's backyard, you know, hanging out, drinking beer, watching the fire, sucking up some heat, and being cold in the back, warm in the front. So pretty cool, actually. So you guys are lucky to just sit and watch that fire. You could probably like put that on some sort of a, you know, constant run thing and put it on your TV, and, you know, when you have friends over, you know, there's a little fire going, right?
Yep.
So what is it specifically that I am supposed to talk about, besides the fact that
well, what led you to the military, your progression through it? Obviously, just kind of a brief
we should have some you know, some preface with this, or context. Yeah,
it just shows the public that we're on the fly here. You know, you're working.
So you know there's this phrase that people say all the time, and really just, it always bothers me, and most veterans it bothers as well. It's like, thank you for your service, sir. You know, and I want to shove my finger down my throat and throw up on them, because, you know, I mean, it's like, first of all, 90% of the time, they have no idea what they're really saying. It's just, you know, it's a canned comment to, you know, make them feel better. It doesn't make me feel better. It doesn't make most veterans feel better. If you ask most veterans, how do you really feel when somebody thanks you for their service? You know, they'd shove their finger down their throat. You know, I believe this to be true. Most people join the military because they have some trumped up idea about what they're going to go do, and the excitement of what they're going to go do. And, you know, and the reality of it is they're going to get paid to go do something, you know, and often, rarely, but often, when I say rarely do people like, I want to go fight. Most of the time, they're in between a rock and a hard place, and, you know, their military service seems to be something that might work out till they figure out what the hell they're going to do for the rest of their lives. And then once they're in, you know, you kind of got one of two people. It's going to be everything you make it to be. It's either going to be great or it's going to suck. And if it sucks, you get out in 3 years, or, you know, however long you signed up for active duty, and then you're going to go away, you know, and then someday in your life, you're like, yeah, I was a war hero, or I was a soldier, or whatever, you know, because somehow it benefits them to, you know, be special. Because we all need to feel special. Anybody that doesn't think they need to feel special are lying to themselves. Right, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the whole idea behind doing what we did what we did. Everybody has their own little reason, but often, in my long time in service, it's like they didn't have anything else to do. They were on a shit run, you know, to nowhere, and they took the chance and joined the military. And the military has a tendency to, you know, at least when I was in, had a strong possibility that you're going to turn into a better person. You're going to learn, how to be miserable. You're going to learn success. You're going to learn from failure. And you're going to be, in a situation where when you get out, you're a better person. You've actually learned, how to embrace life. And I don't think I'm wrong, but I think that's most people's thing. When people say thank you for your service, most people that say thank you for the service, they're either reading a goddamn card. Sorry I said that, but they're either reading a card that says tell the customer thank you for your service, or they're saying it because, they have this silly idea that somehow that's going to make me feel better. I didn't do it because I wanted somebody to thank me for it. I didn't do it for that. Most people don't do it for that. They do it because there's just, it's like, it's a thing to do. It's exciting. War is fun, contrary to popular belief. It's really fun, unless you're a cook, or something like a cook or a truck driver. Actually, I have some friends that are truck drivers that got their ass kicked.
Crocheted 88 mics.
I know, right? I was an 88 mic for a while.
So let's start off, I guess, with.
We just started off with like 5 minutes of me talking.
Pretty hard and heavy there.
With your monologue.
So let's start with what year you joined, what MOS, branch of service, and we'll kind of go from there.
So, because it doesn't really much matter. I'm receiving a retirement check now, irregardless of what I did or didn't do. So I wanted to join the Army because I needed a job, and I knew they were going to pay me more than I was making digging a grave like I was doing.
Quite literally, right?
Quite literally, yeah. I was digging graves. It's going to sound really funny. I made $400 a month. That's a couple of years ago, though. And so, yeah, like 40. Anyway, I thought, I'm going to join it, So I went, and they determined that I was a borderline diabetic. And I was like, fuck. So the Army guy, the active Army guy said, join the National Guard. They are the country doctor, in this little town. They're not going to notice that. So join the National Guard, go to basic training. And when you're in basic training, you can transfer into active duty. I'm like, okay, that sounds reasonable. I'll do that.
A recruiter's word is gold.
Yeah, why would they lie? And so I went in.
What year was this?
1977. So I went in on the delayed entry program. I joined the National Guard on the delayed entry program. And during the delayed period of time, the active Army decided they wanted high school graduates or GED graduates, and I was neither. So I went to basic training, and they're like, yeah, no, you need GED or you need, high school graduates. So I thought, fuck. So I came home, and I went to the community college in our town, and I took my GED test, and I passed it. I wasn't stupid. I was stupid, but I wasn't like ignorant or whatever.
Stubborn.
I was stubborn. Stupid. Anyway, so I went and got my GED, went back to the MAPS or whatever it's called today, and same fucking doctor. And I was like, yeah, that's the same thing. Nothing's changed. He's like, well, why would we sign you up? So long story short, I said, fuck you. And, I just stayed in the National Guard. And then, I'm going to say it was like 1989. I was poor again, looking for a better income, and I joined what's called AGR, Assholes Getting Rich, technicians will call it. But it's Active Guard Reserve. And I learned early in my life, promotion means more money. So my goal was to make as much as I could, so I did everything I could do to get promoted to the next rank. And then along the way, a bunch of fuckers, people that took advantage of me. But I never lost sight. It's like when I grow up and I'm that person, I'm not gonna fuck my soldiers. So I was that hard charging, do it. I'll work late. I'll stay late. I'll do the job. When the rest of the people were like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go home. I'm going to be with my wife or kids or whatever. And I didn't do that. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And so my reward was rank. And then there was many successes in my life. And I'm not sure exactly how long this, how much of this time I get as opposed to the millennial that's sitting next to me gets.
Well, they obviously get more because they're more important.
They are. Just ask them. But it really turns out true. And it probably is true, not probably, it's true in every walk of life. Put some effort into it and you'll have some success. So off to Iraq I went, and I thought I'm never going to go to war. I was E9. I was the operations sergeant major. I went to the academy, sergeant major academy, graduated. I came back, and like the very next day, my National Guard unit got activated, and we were an infantry battalion. So we got activated. We went through a series of stupid shit that, were they TSDs or yeah. They were the trainers, the active duty trainers that trained us how to low crawl in mud puddles and underneath barbed wire and, probe for mines and do all kinds of stupid shit that I absolutely never, ever, 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 or any of my soldiers ever did. But that didn't stop them from treating us like we were a bunch of fucking idiots. Turns out they were the fucking idiots. Anyway, went to NTC, brought all the rain down there.
What is NTC? National
Training Center. Brought all the rain with us. Went through some really, really silly stuff. Because when you're under, you're under the microscope. And
what year was this? Do you remember?
2003. When you're under the microscope, and the Army, theoretically, they know what they're doing. Guys, the active duty guys, they treated us like we're a bunch of fucking idiots. Turns out they were the idiots, but you don't know that. You don't know what you don't know until you know it. So off to where we go, and it was pretty fucking scary. It was like, oh my god. But
where were you guys at? When did you land?
Baghdad. Well, we landed in Kuwait. And then our vehicles and stuff showed up, and we got them all ready to go. And I remember putting it's called Gypsy armor on our 998s, which is the first version of the Humvees.
Armored Humvees, right?
No, they were not up armored. They were a 998.
998 is the most
like plastic.
998 is the most basic, underpowered, lightweight,
plastic door. Just junk.
Naturally aspirated, 150 horsepower,
something like that. Really underpowered. And we put gypsy armor, and the gypsy armor was like, 7/8 inch plate steel, but it was just like having the windows down. And glass window, regular old glass window, like a windshield. Anyway, we drove from Kuwait into Baghdad. Actually drove underneath the cross sabers. Those cross sabers?
Yeah.
Did you see them?
No.
Did you?
No.
I drove underneath those, and we drove into it's like a big giant stadium thing.
With the helmets from the Iranians.
Helmets, yeah. So the speed bumps were helmets. This is no shit. The speed bumps were helmets, and each helmet had a gunshot through the head, and that was to signify that they, killed all these people, shooting them in the head, which they probably didn't. They killed them perhaps, but they didn't shoot them to the head. And then they had like fishnets, giant fishnets, and all the helmets in the fishnets. It's pretty interesting. Went through the process of doing the right hand, left seat, left seat ride. The guy I replaced, a little black guy, so name is Sergeant Major Bob. He's like 5'10". No shit, 5'5", 6. Little guy, great guy. Carried his rifle or his 9mm on his chest. I had mine on my side.
You were more cowboy.
Yeah, I still had. I carried a canteen. Yeah, an actual canteen on my side. Everybody else had Later on, I did too.
Camelback.
I went to Camelback too because that just made more sense. You know, when you're running and fighting and jumping over, you know, shit streams and whatever, it's just nice to have that back there because you can just reach up and grab it.
So
Suck on it.
I'm going to interject a tiny little bit, and I don't want to spend too much time on any one individual. But for the folks that just don't know, weren't there, and you know, myself being one of those people that were there, one of my favorite stories is that that soldier that you knew that had to take a shit. I think that's a great story.
Well,
it kind of really encompasses the detachment of being able to touch porcelain and turn a faucet and flick a light on experience that is being that slice of Americana, and then going to a third world country where, you know, well, those things just don't exist.
So we laugh about
in abundance anyway.
So we laugh about it, and it really is quite funny. It's a great story, but it's a true story.
And you know what? Maybe that guy might watch this video.
Well, I hope so. And if he does, you know, he'd be like, man, fuck him. But it's still a funny story nonetheless. So, you know, we showed up. It's like 900. It was I had a bunch of units attached to me. I had 946 guys. And we arrived to our fob that had been guarded, by the way, by a platoon of soldiers, and they just hid in the buildings and hoped nobody would do anything to them, as the Iraqis were stealing every fucking thing they could steal, up to and including the wiring for all the electrical and stuff. So we arrived. Imagine 946 guys.
I remember this. Yeah.
And there was like 10 shitters. And there was no place else to poop.
Shitters being
porta potties.
Porta johns.
10 of them. And there's, and that's it. So, you know, just real quick, do the math. 946 people means 94 people per porta potty.
Shitting, pissing
and pissing in there, yeah. And so,
Remind me to talk about
we had
tubes.
We had like 15 or 16, I can't remember now, maybe 13. What do you call those? You know, the on the castle, you got the corner. What do they call those? What do they call those?
Rampart?
No.
Crenellations.
No, you know, we're not going to get it. Guard towers. But they had a specific name, you know, because it was a tower. It was one of his palaces that had been blown to shit. But a lot of it was still Saddam Hussein's palaces, yeah. And so I'm going around, you know, doing the sergeant major thing, making sure that, you know, we're prepping ourselves and doing the right sort of stuff. And, you know, so, you know, I'm walking around and, you know, I giggle, and it was really sad actually, because I had a porta-john in front of my building, and it was ours, the command's building. So there might have been like 30 people using it. You know, so chances are you could probably take 2 or 3 shits before it overflowed. So we're walking around, and I get around about 3/4 of the way around the perimeter, and there's a porta-john, and it's really unfortunate you can't see me do the whole routine that I used to do when I talk about this. We're talking about, you know, I'm with my guys, you know, and
right? Chaco.
Well, it was Chaco and Williams and or no, Watkins. Yeah, Watkins. Big black guy. Great big fucking dude. Yeah, walking around and, you know, talking to the soldiers and seeing how it's going and what are you doing, and trying real hard to make sure that they're not, you know, just fucking the dog, because, you know, I mean, it's a real thing. We had ammo.
Locked and loaded.
And this guy walks up. He's kind of a short, you know, like dumpy, you know, kind of chubby dude. And he walks up to the shitter and he opens the door. He looks at it, and then he lets it go because it's spring loaded. He lets the door go, and he kind of wanders around. And then he comes back to it, and he goes inside of it, and then he comes back out because it's porta-john. and there's like a fucking stream, like a shit stream coming out of the porta john, you know, and he goes back in, then he comes back out because it probably really reeks because it's like fucking 1,000
You
degrees.
mentioned the pyramid in the toilet.
And that's coming. Anyway, so he leaves again, and he's walking with his, you know, like his butt cheeks are fucking snug, right? Because he's got shit bad, you know. And I don't know why I just noticed it, and I thought I was giggling inside. I knew it was horrible, and I'm horrible, but I was giggling inside, thinking, that poor fucker. So he goes back in, and he's in there for like 2 minutes, and then he comes out. You know, and you know, he just walks over to the corner and, you know, like throws up. And so I was like, well, what's the problem? You know, so I went over to the shitter and opened the door. It's like, oh my God, first of all, it smelled like shit because it's a shitter or porta john. And there was poop crowned. It was like a pyramid of
Pooping
poop.
onto poop.
Yeah, pooping on poop. You know, and there was no toilet paper because that was long gone. You know, after about the 30 or 40th shit, there was no more toilet paper. So, and, you know, it's not like I'm going to take some toilet paper with me. Nobody thinks that, right? So it's like T-shirts and, you know, underwear and socks, whatever the hell you didn't want. That's what you wiped your ass with. It was horrible. I went, after I watched all that happen, I went to my S4 NCO and I said...
Wait, hold on. I remember the story. He shit against the wall. And he used
No,
money
he
to
threw
shit
up on the
butt.
wall.
The same guy?
Yeah, that's the story.
Well, you know,
No, that's
it's probably a different one.
using a dollar bill. That was mine. Yeah.
So I don't remember
I
that.
find out everybody did that.
I don't remember that. But I do remember this. I went to my S4 NCO. Great guy. And I was like, I don't give a fuck what you do. You go over to that green zone and you go find one of those shit trucks and you fucking make him come over here and empty every one of them. And then you make him come over here. I don't care how much, fucking $5,000, $10,000, I don't care. These need to be emptied 2 or 3 times a day until we get more porta potties. And, you know, to his chagrin or whatever that word is, you know, he did it. To his credit, he went and did it. You know, and that ended that little problem.
America.
So-
Make it happen.
Fuck
real,
yeah.
Real quick.
Real quick?
We're far into this. So what year were you there?
Me?
Yes.
I arrived there in like,
Recycle that one.
2004, I think is when I got there. Like, we arrived in our spot. Well, we deployed to Kuwait. We were there like 2 or 3 weeks. We got there in March. Then we drove from Kuwait to Baghdad. That's when I did the cross sign, you know, the cross sabers.
Yeah.
I went to that. Then we hooked up with the 3rd Brigade, Sergeant Major and S3, and then they took us to our FOB. So I think I want to say I arrived at the FOB April 1st, something like that. Maybe the end of March, pretty close to
2004.
2004.
And Matt, when were you there?
09 first time, then 2011 with you the second time.
At Gary On, right?
Yeah, second time, yeah, it was Bob Gary Owen down in Namara.
And the first time?
It was Mosul. It was Merez. There was Diamondback and Merez. Diamondback was the Air Force side with the airfield, and then Merez was the Army side with.
So you went there after the Marines took Mosul back?
You're thinking of Haditha, the Haditha Dam and all that.
I am, or you are?
You are. Yeah.
Well, in 2000,
So-
I had like a section of medics. There were like a couple of girls and a couple of guys. Like there was like 7 or 8 people. I lost them for the Mosul push when they took Mosul, the big giant tank battle. And then the Marines did that.
You're thinking of freaking Fallujah.
Yeah.
Fallujah. My bad.
That's way out west.
You know,
yeah.
I'm fucking old. It's been a long
Yeah,
time.
it's been
since I've drinking
10,
beer.
15, 20 years.
Yeah,
some of this
20
shit,
years
so.
ago.
And that's why we're documenting it.
So to go back
My
to
bad,
the beginning,
my bad.
right, before I was cut
Yeah.
off. So I grew up in the Midwest and
Poor white guy.
middle class white guy, bad grades, and I had a choice between Caterpillar, because Caterpillar was the big
Oh yeah.
employer, right, and I could go to Cat, or I could go to the Army, and I said, well, machine guns sound cooler than
They are,
machines,
especially when you're young.
So I joined Split Options, just like you, where I was an 88 Mike for a truck driver for a year as a guard or as a reservist, and then I went active duty on my 18th birthday and went to Fort Benning again. Did basic training a second time. I got to
As a 11 Bravo, right?
yeah. So I reclassified as 11 Bravo as an infantryman.
And what was your rank? Like E2?
I started as a PFC because I had prior service as a reservist. So and I remember when I was a reservist, they were talking about spinning up and going for a deployment, and they said, hey, whatever your rank is, just imagine they're going to treat you, and you're going to be expected to be 2 ranks lower than whatever you are. So
you're a guard or
Private Bennett, you are an E1, you know nothing.
Fucking
us section leaders, squad leaders, we're basically E4 specialists. You're not going to expect us to do anything. So I reclassed. I went 11 Bravo. When I turned 18, I moved out to Fort Hood. And
wasn't that a great transition?
What?
To be in 11 Bravo?
Oh, dude, probably one of the most prideful moments of my life. Like,
What the hell's the name of that hill?
Yeah,
Hill.
when you're raised on Davy Crockett, from the 50s Davy Crockett movies, Disney, and Daniel Boone, and it's like he
was the man.
I was
a big man.
I'm a middle class, American man in a heteronormative, society of just do your fucking job. And it's like you're supposed to turn 18, join the Army as an infantryman, follow Audie Murphy,
become a
man, fight whoever it is, because we're always fighting somebody. Fight whoever we're fighting.
Bad guy.
And then come back, make your 2.5 kids, get a house with a 1/4 acre and a pension job, right? Most of the way to that, it's great success. But
the Army was that for me.
Getting to Honor Hill, that last FTX, when you go out and you do 2 weeks in the field and walking up Honor Hill, and like I fucking powered my body pulling all this goddamn weight up this fucking hill, and it burned down, by the way.
Mm-hmm. And little did you know that later on in life you were going to carry like 5 times that weight.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
Most of it here, but we getting to the hill and having your cross rifles pinned on you, and every drill sergeant come by and punch them in. You're bleeding like a motherfucker. And the only thing I could think at that point was, I can't wait to get my CIB and combat infantry badge, because I know you're gonna fucking ask.
Real men have CIBs, right?
Yeah. And so I went active duty, drove down to Fort Hood, and my unit, 3/8 cab, was we were going, like, I got there in like July, and we deployed in November. And I got, you fall ass backwards into some things that are shitty, and you fall ass backwards once in a blue moon into something good. And I got there when my unit was at NTC, and so I was on rear D with all the like fat bodies and slugs that get to get away with not doing anything. And so they were like, well, you're going to be on
PSD. He was one of them.
No. I got there, and that was all that was there. And so I got put into the command sergeant major's PSD. I would have been bodyguarding some old fart who just wants to walk around looking at people's shit and
give him a bad time.
And
you know what you're doing.
And so I was in headquarters company, and HHC goes out to do. We had to qual and with our M4s, and at the time, the
So let's just clarify: HHC headquarters company, which is filled with support people.
it's all of the
And
support people of the battalion.
He was the kind of guy. He was like an add-on little piece, like one or two lines in their whole. What the hell they call that?
TO&E.
T&E. Yeah, he's like there's like 10 of them in the entire company, and their whole purpose is to guard people because they were infantry, and the thought was that somehow they would be able to, because they knew what they're doing.
They're supposed to be
Gun-wise, they knew how to
shooters.
Gun and rock and suck it up, and they could recognize stupid shit happening.
Not to poo other MOSs though, even as a fresh, brand new into the system of the Army, if you're an infantryman, you are slightly better.
Well,
You're taught to believe that.
I heard it this way, and I still believe it, is that if there's a bunch of leaders, no matter what the category is, squad leaders, up to battalion people, they're going to defer to the 11 Bravo.
Unless he's an E4.
Yeah. Well,
and they're like, shut up,
but
just do what I tell you.
It's basically seniority of job, right? You're the person, if you're, they didn't put, what's his name as the one in charge in
they didn't put the food service
in Hearts War. It was the infantry officer who was in charge, right, of all these smattering of people. So anyway,
even if he was a first lieutenant, not a second lieutenant, but a first lieutenant.
Yeah. So I was with headquarters and I was qualifying, and at the time, the snipers weren't really like. The Army is famous for having great snipers.
Pan back into the fire because it's beautiful. Yeah.
But the sniper section was a thing that was part of battalion and headquarters company.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to be, the snipers are supposed to be tasked out where needed.
By the S3.
By the battalion S3. At the time, the battalion S3 is a lieutenant, and he doesn't really want to do anything.
Wait a minute, what?
At battalion level, yeah, he was a lieutenant, and I remember reading a pamphlet that was for field grade and above distribution, and it was a little hard, 8-page pamphlet.
Stop for a sec. Point of clarification.
FM.
Generally, the S3, the battalion S3, is a major or maybe a captain.
This was when if you
had to major.
This was in 09. This was if you had 10 fingers and toes, you could get a waiver for 8 or 9. You could get in. I had a buddy who scored like a 23 on the ASVAB. 23%. He could have statistically guessed better, and he was dumber than statistics, and he got in. So they would take literally fucking. Yeah.
Wasn't it 34? Was the minimum for the Army?
Yeah, he got a waiver. So the point is, they were stretched fucking thin. I remember reading a pamphlet one day though about how it was for field grade distribution for field grade officers, major and above, about employment of sniper sections, because apparently it was something cattywampus about how the Army was doing it. And I was like, holy shit, this describes literally exactly what we do and all of the shit we gripe about. Wow. So the way it worked back then was S3 is supposed to be in charge, the operations of the battalion is supposed to be the officer in charge of using the snipers, and you need an officer to be in charge of you at all times in the Army. You have, you can have an E4 be your team leader, you can have an E5 be your team leader. I was in charge of a section at one point as an E4 because we were thin that period. But you have to have an officer because a gentleman who's been to college needs to sign off on your shit. And
that's
that
point
officer,
of blame. That's what's known as a point of blame.
And that officer didn't want to deal with it. It was apparently an Army-wide problem. So what apparently was the standard, like by default, because that's just how it worked out, Army thinks, oh, well, the Marines call them scout snipers. Every battalion has a scout section of 19 deltas. if I task them, because we're supposed to be tasked out for missions, if I just task them to the scouts,
They're magically snipers.
section, the snipers, no, the sniper section of snipers will be under the officer of the scout platoon, and I won't have to deal with it. And so the scouts are part of headquarters, and I happen to have the sniper section leader as my RSO, the guy behind me.
RSO means
range safety officer. And so he was the guy behind me telling me, like, all right, now shoot. And when I zeroed my rifle, it was like, one little ragged hole, right?
Yeah.
And he went, hey, you're a pretty good shot. You ever thought about being a sniper? And, for a guy that grew up with, like, oh, Carlos Hathcock is a fucking god. And I was like, oh, obviously. I'm 19. That sounds fucking great.
Yeah, 19, everything does.
And he was like, well, I need 2 bodies still before we deploy to be deployable. I'll fucking take you if you want. And so I just laterally moved over to the sniper section, fucking fell ass backwards into being a sniper. And so I deployed in 2009.
Time to go.
We went to Mosul.
I heard you. Hold on.
Are you ready?
No,
I heard you. Hold on. Turn that off.
It's all in the video now.
I know. So just.
Hold on.
Well, come on, it's time. I'm ready to wait.
Yeah, it's
All right,
like
10
fucking
minutes.
11 o'clock.
just stop the video real quick. You
Yeah,
can cut
can
this
you do
part
that?
out.
You know what? Real quick.
Can't
Actually,
you hit stop?
how old are you?
Me?
Yeah.
You're not gonna put
66.
this in the videos. Just cut it.
And how old are you?
35.
35. So that's roughly what, a 30-year difference?
31 if we're counting.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to continue this for another time, but so 04.
So that'd be the second video. This
Yes,
is
the second video.
one of multiples.
One of multiples. Hopefully
To be
to be
continued.
continued. So the aspects of this video is you deployed as Command Sergeant Major Suicide. You
Yes.
deployed as a PFC, right? Was the sniper
Yeah.
section.
Yeah.
So we have a leader of approximately 2,000 dudes, 1,800.
No, my battalion had 900 with attachments. We had 946 guys.
Wow. Okay.
So it's
Sergeant Major Plumley from We Were Soldiers.
the tall, skinny guy.
Yeah. When they're doing the readiness, and he says, "How many people do you have?" And Sergeant Major, he's like, "How many exactly?"
Yeah.
That's the sergeant.
Well, that's I mean, in the NCO world, accountability. So officers plan shit, and NCOs have to execute the stupid shit that they plan. And sergeants majors are really kind of there to like the make sense button, right? It's like, sure, you understand that if we do that, we're gonna fucking lose a whole bunch of people. And the officer be like, this is the plan. So the NCO in charge has to figure out the best way to mitigate loss. You got to complete the mission. NCOs figure out how to accomplish that mission, whatever it is, with zero loss. And that rarely happens, but you put a lot of effort into mitigating loss. How do you do that? Through communication, through training, and a clear understanding that the mission has to, it has to happen.
So, a while back, a couple of years ago, Fat Electrician did a video back when he was doing TikToks about, he did one on infantry, one on the Marines, one on officers. And one of his points was that, the officer is the most dangerous person in a unit because he can direct the unit to do whatever is necessary. And
Yeah.
if you're a bad guy, like, he's going to most efficiently destroy you with his unit. conversely, if you kill the officer, you've just signed your own death warrant, because unlike Russia or China or any, top-down military, the U.S. military is based on initiative and self-initiative. And if you take out the officer, we don't, as the U.S. military, we don't stop and go like the Iraqis did.
Yeah, what do we do now?
Oh, all of our communications have been destroyed. I don't know what to do because I haven't been told what to do. The U.S. military has an NCO corps, and the Soviet Union, and thus all of our enemies, are based on even the officers just waiting for a higher officer to tell them what to do. And if you take out the ability for the top to tell you what to do, they won't do anything, and they'll freeze up and then just give
They're
up.
easy target.
And so this is top to bottom of that structure of, you can take out the officer, or an officer can come up with a bad idea, but at any point somebody below them is going to figure out how to still get the mission done.
A better way.
I mean, there was one point where I got left behind as a PFC in Mosul, right?
I was an E6. I got left behind.
And you know what? You just instantly become the most dangerous thing within a mile of you, because you have this self-initiative to go, holy shit, I've got this much killing ability on my body, and my mission is to get back to the rest of my unit, and now fucking Jason Bourne couldn't stand in the way of that. If you take out,
even an actor though. Jason Bourne is a
character.
Okay.
But the point is, an officer at any point could come up with a dumb fucking idea, and a sergeant major would be like, okay, I'll figure out how to make that mission happen.
Well, actually, what happens, and this is actually 100% true. So, and I loved the military uniform when the rank was on the collar, up on the I don't know what the fuck you call this thing that goes around. Lapel, yeah. So it's like the rank and then a branch. So you could branch being MOS in the enlisted, it's called MOS. In the officers, it's branch. So if you're an E7, I'll give it E7 and above, E7, E8, E9, and you quickly do an assessment. And if it's a doctor or a lawyer or a transportation or some sort of like non-combative officer, they will default to the senior NCO there, and they'll ask, and this is no shit. So fuck, what do we do? They won't do it in front of everybody. They'll pull you off to the side and say, fuck, what do we do, Sergeant Major? Or what do we do, Master Sergeant, First Sergeant? What do we do? And so not infantry, but enlisted corps just has a rank, right? But as an infantry guy, I would say this to the colonels that were in our, like we do a convoy or something, the colonel's going to be there. Like, if he's a doctor, I had a full bird colonel. It's like, what do we do, Sergeant Major? I'm like, well, sir, this is what we should do. And they're like, okay, that's what we're doing. Because they just know, unlike officers come and go, enlisted people are there for life. So, officers will show up. They don't have a fucking clue, like it's a butterball, second lieutenant, don't have a clue. And then in a very short period of time, it's real clear they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. But they're smart enough to defer to the enlisted guy. And then, I'm coming. Turn it off. Turn it off.